Good evening and a very warm welcome to you wherever you may be. Thank you for tuning in to the Croat Soccer Show. It's Season 2, Episode 6. We've already clocked up half a dozen episodes in 2023. Folks, my name is Tonci Prusats. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight, and a very, very warm pleasure it is to the man, and a welcome to the man, Ante Grabovac, all the way from the Harbour City. Ante, how are you, mate? And how are things in the Harbour City in Sydney tonight? We can't hear you. Have you switched your microphone off?
There we go. Let's start again.
There we go. Let's start again.
Oh, boy, yeah, that's the way to start.
For a minute,
Fine and well, thanks, Taunchy.
We thought you had laryngitis there. Now, that is a concern. That is a concern if a master of ceremonies, an MC, has laryngitis, so we can't have that. The voice of the Croatian community in Sydney, Ante. How you been, mate? How's things? Still thawing out from last night's game? Was it cold up there watching the midweek Australia Cup clash?
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting colder and colder, Taunchy, and you need to really rug up now. You got to wear your beanie and everything else, 3-4 layers to get to a match. It wasn't as cold as Sunday night, actually, watching Hersel Zagreb. That was a lot colder. But last night, yeah, was okay.
Well, for us down here in Victoria, we usually have all 4 seasons in the one day. And you know you're from Victoria because you always start the conversations about the weather. But anyway, folks, thank you for being with us tonight. It's just one of those days, isn't it, Ante? I think there's a massive full moon over the entire southern hemisphere because it was just one of those days where nothing seemed to go right. We had all these guests lined up, then they unfortunately weren't able to make it, and then we approached some others last minute. We understand it was all last minute, but having said that, so much is happening. Ante, what are some of the things we'll be looking, dissecting, discussing, analysing tonight?
Yeah, Taunchy, of course, we had 3 big Australian Cup matches last night. We'll be going through those, and we've got some footage as well to show from 2 of them.
Yeah.
We'll be going through all the action of the weekend and what's coming up this weekend. We will be talking about the big news that's going on today with the big announcements of the 26 Australian clubs that have reached the second phase of the proposal to be admitted into the national second division. And we'll be covering the Croatian news overseas as well. And this morning, of course, Real Madrid without the legend Luka Modric had a 1-1 draw at home. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully we'll be back for the second leg.
Yes, we'll also be announcing who our big special overseas guest is for next week's show. That is signed, sealed and delivered. And the only thing that could probably stuff us up is another full moon episode, but hopefully that won't be the case. Folks, we've got a huge show to get through. Let's get straight into it. We're going to move over to the news desk. It's the Croat Soccer Show, Season 2, Episode 6. And folks, before we move on, if your club would like to sponsor an upcoming episode of the Croat Soccer Show and be featured as part of our Club in Focus segment, contact us now by emailing ozcroatsoccershow@gmail.com or calling us on 0402 012 716. Folks, don't go away. It is time for the news desk with Ante.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Tonci. Let me tell you. All right, we're ready to go. We'll start in Tassie down south, where it is getting colder. We mentioned the cold, and the Glenorchy Knights had a 1-0 win over the Zebras, and that puts them into second position. They've got 5 wins and 1 loss, and this weekend they've got the big first versus second match against Devonport City, who are undefeated. And so, let's hope that, this is a 6-pointer because Glenorchy Knights can actually overtake Devonport if they win, because there's only it's 1-point gap there, and Glenorchy can lead by 2 points if they do win this weekend. So Saturday, May 13, if you are down in Tassie, 2:30 p.m. kickoff at Valley Road Ground. I'd love to go to a Glenorchy match one day.
I will too, actually.
Yeah, maybe we can have a Croat tourney down there one day. We'll see what happens. But there you go. First versus second, and let's hope the Glenorchy Knights can get the chocolates on Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay, moving over to Victoria. Tonci, the Melbourne Knights keep on keeping on. That's notching up another win against Dandenong Thunder in round 12. North Geelong, unfortunately, had a heavy defeat, 5-0 against the Oakley Cannons. And St. Albans, they have started to go on, a little bit of a good result run. Well, anyway, this is their first good result in 5, and it's a good and very important 3-0 victory over Moreland City in round 12. So that lifts them up to 11th spot, while the Knights are in 4th, and North Geelong are in 13th spot at this current time. So let's hope the 3 Croatian clubs can keep doing well in Victoria. The 4th Croatian club, which is in NPL2, Dandy, they had a 3-0 win over Bulleen. And that puts them into 5th position at the moment. And they've had 4 wins out of the last 5 games. So that's a good run of form for them.
Yeah, this is one of those. We talk about it on one of our sister programs, Football Out West Show. We call it the chaos competition, this one. And I think I mentioned it in last week's game as well. But all you need is to string 2 good results, 2 good wins, and you move 7-8 spots up the ladder. And look, at the moment, Dandenong City, they're 4 points behind the leaders, Preston, 3 behind Kingston. And Kingston are one of those teams that have had a really, really good run, but a very important win for Dandenong City against the Taliani from Bulleen Lions, and they now find themselves in, striking position of those top 2 promotion spots. But anyway, moving along.
Terrific work. Yes, so the next fixtures for this weekend, the only Croatian team in Victoria at home are the Knights. That's on Friday night, so rug yourself up for the traditional NSL derby against Heidelberg United, 7:30 p.m. kickoff at Knights Stadium. That should be a beauty, with, of course, the Knights sitting in 4th position and Heidelberg sitting currently in 10th. So, hopefully that's another 3 points for the Knights. St. Albans are away to Green Gully at Green Gully Reserve, also on Friday night. And on Sunday, Mother's Day, North Geelong are away to South Melbourne. That's at Lakeside. And Dandy are away to the Eastern Lions on Saturday at Gardeners Creek Reserve. You're saying it's a tough game against South Melbourne, Tonci?
Oh yeah, they're in good form at the moment, and they defeated the leaders Avondale FC 3-0 last week. So apparently their ground is very hard to play on, very narrow sort of a field. And North Geelong, well, they did well midweek, and we'll get to that a bit later on. But they do have a very, very young side, very, very inexperienced side coming up against the might of South Melbourne. But, where there's a will, there's a way. And we'll find out on Sunday how they go. But, let's move along now to the ACT. Lots happening there.
That's right. The Monaro Panthers, unfortunately, defeated Canberra, Croatia by 1-0. And the O'Connor Knights had a 3-3 draw against Gungahlin United. So that's a very high-scoring draw. And, of course, Gungahlin are in action right now against Canberra, Croatia in the Australia Cup, Tonci, as well.
Yeah, at the moment, just before halftime, we've got a progress score, and we'll give you scores throughout the evening. But not good news for Canberra, Croatia fans. Canberra, Croatia currently down 1-2 just before the halftime break. But, there's still 45 minutes to go. And it is being played at Deakin Stadium. So it is Canberra's home venue. So the chances are of Canberra coming back in the second half are quite strong. But yeah, we'll talk a lot more about these two teams, Canberra, Croatia, and Gungahlin United, especially later on when we talk about the proposed national second division. But yeah, that's it for Canberra, Croatia.
Well,
O'Connor Knights
just
really well.
yeah, go on. Yeah, O'Connor Knights are doing well. That's right. They're in fourth position, Tonci.
Yeah, and a draw there against Gungahlin United. But look, they've got a game against Woden Western. You'd expect them to win this game. So look, it's one of those things, isn't it? They can almost jump up to second spot depending on how Tigers and Monaro Panthers go this week coming. But yeah, it's a tight league. Only 8 teams, so it's a small competition. But look, the nation's capital. Yeah, for those that are interested in the capital football,
And
I'd be very surprised.
Tonight's just a
I was going to,
practice match for Sunday.
yeah,
Mother's Day.
I was going to say though, I'd be surprised if anyone from Canberra is tuning into our podcast tonight, because I'm sure they're watching the live stream of the Canberra Croatia Gungahlin Australia Cup game. But anyway. Moving along, Ante, what's next?
Tony Chava says hello. Hello, Tony. Welcome to the show. Indeed. Anyone else who wants to put in their messages, just put in your messages and we'll be happy to read you out. Who's listening out there? Over up in Wollongong, or south from me in Wollongong, but moving sort of, away from Canberra, we've got South Coast United, who had a 1-0 loss to Wollongong United. Unfortunately, South Coast have only had the single victory this year, and they are sitting second from bottom this weekend. This Saturday, 2:30 p.m., they play the Corrimal Rangers in Memorial Park. So get on down there and wish those South Coast United team well.
Up to your neck of the woods, Hurstville Zagreb had a really good result on the weekend.
Yeah, really important result. 3 wins on the trot, Tonci, which is fantastic, and that moves them up to 7th position. And, we had a goal by Jesse Gagro, who's got 4 goals so far this year, and Julian Bitter also scored 2 on this evening. It was 0-0 at half-time against the old Parramatta Melita, but Hurstville Zagreb did the business in the second half. So well done on that particular victory. And this Sunday, in a treble of home matches, they are once again home, 7 p.m. kickoff against Union New South Wales at Penshurst Park. So bring your mums and come on down and watch the Hurstville Zagreb boys in action.
Can they do it, Ante? Can they defeat the competition leaders?
Of course they can. Absolutely. Why not? As you said, anything is possible. And the competition leaders have had 2 losses. And, it's been a really, really hard and closely contested competition so far this year. So hopefully Hurstville Zagreb can continue that under, of course, Coach Davor Bajsic, who is in his first season as coach of Hurstville Zagreb.
Former H&L legend Damir Bajsic. Yeah. Okay, on to Sydney United.
Indeed, and Tommy Gavran. Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. Sydney United, they had I didn't come up with the right information here. They actually had a late win against St. George. It was a last-minute winner by Patrick Antelmi.
No, this is the week before.
Yeah, he came on late and scored. And before that, Daniel Nizic actually had a fantastic penalty save. It was a difficult match against St. George. St. George, it was only their 3rd loss of the season. And, under the guidance of Mickey Uril, who's an ex-Sydney United player as well. And Sydney United did very, very well to get out of Penshurst Park with a 1-0 victory, the last kick of the match through Patrick Antelmi. So this weekend, It's a traditional derby against Sydney Olympic, the NSL derby. That used to be a box office hit back in the old days, and hopefully it'll return again once more once we are in the National Second Division, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yes, 3 p.m, take your mums down there, have dinner at King Tom or lunch at King Tom, and go and watch a great game of football, Sydney United versus Sydney Olympic this Sunday with a 3 p.m. kickoff at the Sydney United Sports Centre.
Now, the Novocastrians, Newcastle, Croatia, just are going from strength to strength, and another win, and they've catapulted up to second spot on the competition standings in Newcastle.
Yeah, big 6-3 result. So all the goals are happening up in Newcastle. Well done there. And Newcastle this weekend take on Mayfield United at Pasadena Oval on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. If you are in the area, go down and support the team that keeps scoring lots of goals.
Moving along right now to Queensland.
Queensland, that's right. The Gold Coast Knights had a 1-1 draw against the Queensland Lions. So that was a good point. Obviously, both teams that were in and are currently in third and fourth spot after that draw. And this weekend, they take on, our Knights take on Brisbane Olympic at Goodwin Park. So let's hope that they can climb that ladder. Currently, they are on 18 points. And they are 2 points off second position. So let's hope that they can climb up higher. The Knights. Moving on to Brisbane. We haven't looked at Brisbane before, but here they are. And they are actually sitting at the top of the table. They are in FQPL4 Metro. Come on, Brisbane Knights. You've got to lift yourselves up.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
FQPL. Football Queensland
Metro.
Premier League, I'd say, yeah.
100%. They had a 2-0 win over New Farm United on the weekend and sitting high on the top of the table, 3 wins from 3. And they are taking on Majili FC, I think it's called, at Brisbane Knights Sports Complex. So all Brisbane Knights fans, get out there and support your team. Over in the Raiders, we're very proud of the Adelaide Croatia Raiders because they're sitting at top of the table and they had a 1-1 draw against the Cobras. And let's hope that they can continue that form. There are 3 teams equal on 20 points, of course, on goal difference, plus 11 are the Raiders. And this weekend, they take on Fulham United at home at the Croatian Sports Centre. So hopefully that'll be another victory for the Raiders.
Yeah. And then last but certainly not least, Western Knights and Guelph, Croatia over in WA.
Incredible win, 5-0 to Western Knights over Murdoch Uni, which is absolutely massive. Goals for 22 for Western Knights and goals against are only 2. And gee, they've been doing a fantastic job so far there. Of course, we spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, the president and their technical director, and they're really, really into, wanting to get promoted up there. So let's see if it can happen. And Guelph, and another goal-scoring feast, had a 4-3 victory over Fremantle City, and they sit in 4th position on 11th points currently. Both teams are at home this weekend. Both are on Saturday. Both are at 3 p.m. Western Knights against Fremantle City at Nash Field, and Guelph, Croatia are at home against Subiaco at the Croatian Sports Centre. So go out there and support the teams.
Yeah, we do love seeing the Croatian teams always in the top part of the ladder as opposed to the bottom. And so those that are struggling, hopefully over the next few weeks, will start to report on more and more wins. And those that are continuing to lead the competition in their respective states will continue to do so. Folks, we're going to take a very, very short break. When we return, it is time to look at the situation overseas in Croatia and the latest news in the HNL, the Hrvatska Nogometna Liga. Don't go away.
Welcome to Ep6 Studio Architecture. Our approach combines modern design with harmonious solutions tailored to your unique needs. We listen closely to your vision and turn it into a functional, beautiful living environment that truly feels like home. Our designs cater to your needs and evolve with you over time, encouraging deeper connections with family and friends. Specializing in custom residential homes and boutique apartments, we balance luxury and comfort to create a welcoming atmosphere for everyone to enjoy. Discover a world of inviting and captivating design at www.slavicekstudio.com.au. Contact us for a journey from idea to reality. Ep6 Studio Architecture, turning your dreams into reality.
Welcome back to the Oz Crow Soccer Show. It's episode 36. That's right. Second season already. Looking at last week's show before we move on, if you did miss it, a very, very exclusive interview with the new president of NK Rudesh, Aussie Joe Šimunić. It was our highest rating episode on YouTube, on our exclusive YouTube channel so far this year. And it certainly did very well on all of our other platforms, including Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc., etc. But if you missed that, go on our YouTube channel, Ozcro Soccer Show, and you'll get all the information there. Before we move on to the HNL, the Prva Liga and the Druga Liga news this morning, Slobodna Dalmacija, the Split newspaper, has reported 4 young Hajduk players have received a call-up to the Croatian under-17 team that will take part in the upcoming Euro Championships for the under-17s. That is going to be held between the 15th of May and the 2nd of June in Hungary. And speaking of Aussie players, Noah Skorko, formerly of North Geelong Warriors. We can't actually say Aussie-born because he actually wasn't born in Australia. He was actually born in England, in Manchester. So I guess he's got dual or maybe triple citizenship, Australian, Croatian, and the UK. But he's Ante, not even a year ago now, 9 months ago, he was playing, I keep saying this, in front of 200, 300 spectators at Elko Park in Geelong. Now he's representing Croatia in the under-17 Euro Championships in Hungary. So that's amazing result, amazing news, and well done to Noah. He's already been capped about, I think, 13 times at under-17 international level. So he's already played a lot of games.
Phenomenal. Well done. And obviously had that great run with Hajduk as well. So, he's got a lot of experience under his belt now playing, at a very high level. So good luck to him and great news for him.
Yeah. Now let's move along to the league competition in Croatia. Šibenik, they are not looking good. They lost 2-0 to Varaždin in the latest round of matches, which condemns them to the spot at the bottom of the competition standings. And now the team just above them are undefeated in the last 5 games, Gorica. They, on the weekend, drew to Slaven Belupo 0-0. Rijeka drew with Istra 2-2, and the Rijeka supporters, Armada, had a celebration of their anniversary. I think it was the 35th or something like that. Hajduk Split, they got bounced back into top form, obviously anchored by that man, Marko Livaja, a 3-0 win over Lokomotiva in Zagreb. And Osijek and Dinamo Zagreb had a big 0-0 draw. I say a big 0-0 draw for Osijek it was, and they've got former Dinamo Zagreb star player, Stjepan Tomas now as their coach. So I think it's their 3rd or 4th coach this season. Goodness me, they're really, really changing a lot of coaches. And anyway, their next fixture is against Hajduk Split in the wee hours of Sunday morning. There's not much interest in the battle for top spot. Dinamo's claimed that. Not much interest for the battle for second spot. Hajduk's claimed that. I guess now the battle remains for 3rd and 4th spot, or the 3rd spot, which leads to European competition. And at the other end of the competition standings, it's the battle to avoid 10th spot, i.e. relegation to the 2nd division, which is the Prva Liga, by the way. So if we do go to that, the Prva Liga, or like the 2nd tier competition, Rudeš, they drew to Dugopolje from Split 1-1 on the weekend, but Vukovar, the 2nd place team, were not able to take advantage of Rudeš's slip in recent weeks. I think the last 2 games they've drawn. So they could only manage a 1-1 draw against Dubrava Zagreb. And otherwise, they could have got to within 5 points of Rudeš. So there's something like 4 more games to go. So mathematically, Vukovar can still do it, but realistically, I don't think they will. But there's some of the other results there in the 2nd division. Orient defeated Kustošija 2-0. Cibalia, who one of a club that really struggles with budget at the moment. They really are struggling with their finances. During the week, the Hrvatski Nogometni Savez, the Croatian Football Federation, unveiled a new synthetic pitch which was donated to Tsibalia out of the budget of the HNS. And that is going to come in very, very handy for Tsibalia and their school of football or their youth academy. Jarun defeated Hrvatski Dragovoljac 3-2 in the battle of the Zagreb clubs. And Croatia Zmijavci on the outskirts of Imotski down south in Dalmatia, they defeated Bijelo Brdo, who themselves are on the outskirts of Osijek up in Slavonia. And that, my friend, rounds out the Croatian coverage. Ante, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we return, it's time to talk the Australia Cup action, especially the games that were held last night. So we're going to be back very, very shortly after this very short break.
Yes, Tonci, thanks for the break. Welcome back. And yeah, last night we ventured up to North Turramurra, us brave souls. And here is some footage from that particular match. As you can see, United were peppering all night the Northern Tigers goal. They managed to defeat the Northern Tigers last year with a very last minute goal, 89th minute by Anthony Tomilic. Last night, it went to extra time. It was 0-0, and their keeper made a sensational double save in the first part of extra time, and then in the second part of extra time, of course, we had a raid that occurred. Started with the corner, and then they tried to clear the ball out, and it fell to Adrian Vlastelica, our captain. It was very funny. Because the odd thing is about these actual grounds is that the game in North Turramurra, and North Turramurra is hard to get to at any time of day. And there's a goal. What a bullet from Vlastelica. Absolutely incredible. And so 6:45, absolutely sensational. 6:45 p.m. for the players to get to North Turramurra was a really, really difficult task. And that's all to do with lights. So these are the sorts of things that the players have to come up with. Obviously, they're semi-professional. They're working. They've got to get to the ground, by 5:30 or whatever it is, whatever the coach is telling them, to play in an Australia Cup match. Then they obviously play the Cup match, and then they've got the extra time and so on and so forth. And what actually happened was it was about the 115th minute, and about the quarter of the lights actually started.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Oh, no.
And so Adrian Vlastelica actually heard us on the sideline whinging about, the lights going down. And he goes, there's no way I'm coming back here tomorrow night to do the penalties. And then he put that bullet into the back of the net. So that was just brilliant work. But yeah, Northern Tigers definitely made it difficult for United, but they push on to the next round, which is fantastic stuff. And yeah, it was good to see some of the players last night, like Madonis and Buckmars, etc., get a start. So yeah, they did really well. And yeah, that's exactly what happened, as you can see on the screen. Northern Tigers, North Turramurra Reserve. The game ended up finishing 6:45 p.m. kickoff. About 9:30, we finished there, and 117th minute, beautiful goal by Adrian Vlastelica. In other games, North Geelong, Tonci, you were actually there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, and we'll actually show some footage. There we go. There's some footage. It was a very young team. Talk about cold, bitterly cold. The game was actually held on pitch 2 at Alco Park, North Geelong's pitch 2. Long story short, the lights on pitch 2 are at 200 lux, which is the bare minimum that Football Australia allows. Football Victoria allows. That was a goal there by Kaman Mayan in the 56th minute. We didn't get all the goals. Luke Živčić's were missed in the first one, which is for North Geelong. You can see the club rooms in the background, but the main ground actually has something like 130 lux. So, long story short, games have to be played on the second pitch. But brought us really close to the action, and it was great to see a lot of younger players there. Number 16, Rocker Ramage. And the guy who scored the goal, you can just see him passing the ball there to Caleb Mikulic, was a 16-year-old by the name of Marko Juric. He scored his first goal. He's in at senior level. So what a way to do it. He scored it in the 91st minute. It was extra time. This game kicked off at 8 p.m. By the time extra time rocked around, it was something like 10:30 by the time the game finished. It was freezing cold. There's Marko Juric, number 6, kid with great future, only 16 years of age, who made his debut against the Melbourne Knights in a league game about a month or so ago. And now he was responsible for scoring the winner that's going to send North Geelong through to the next round, the round of round 6. Now, there was other notable players as well. Spencer Hand, he made his first minutes as well, playing in the seniors. He came off the bench as well. So there's a lot of young players getting a go. And North Geelong Warriors coach Tommy Govern, he's tuning into this podcast tonight. So feel free, Tommy, to pop anything in the comments section. But he was quite happy with their endeavours and their effort as well. And look, even though Chisholm United is a team 5 divisions below North Geelong, 5 tiers below, they still managed to give North Geelong a real good run for their money. And but yet, look, the most important thing is the result. They've managed to get through, and that was the most important thing. The other game that was played last night, so oopsie daisy, is still in the cup. Put that one up. Sorry, Ante, I was just going to, I almost cut you off. The other game that was played was a high-scoring affair at it wasn't actually at Wembley Park. Last minute, it was moved to Knights Stadium because Wembley Park was actually unavailable. So basically, it was a Box Hill United home game played at Melbourne Knights Stadium. Work that one out. 5-0 win for the Knights. Luka Korlic getting a brace there, and Trevor Semakula scored a hat-trick. So the Knights, their season just seems to be getting better and better and better, and they are doing really well. Who's it still in the cup, Ante?
Well, yes, Tonci, of course, tonight we've got the game happening right now with Canberra, Croatia versus Gungahlin. On Tuesday, May 24, we've got the Gold Coast Knights. They are still alive, and they're taking on Brisbane City at home. We've also got today, the draw happened for Victoria, and the next round we've got the Croatian derby with North Geelong hosting St Albans at a date and time to be advised. Also, with a date and time to be advised, Dandenong have got a tough battle against Oakley Cannons. And then we've also got the other 2 teams in terms of Melbourne Knights will be playing the Bentley Greens. Sydney United, of course, with last night's victory, to be advised who their next opponent is, but they keep on kicking on. One more round until, if they get through that, then they're in a round of 32 again, which will be fantastic. And Wellup, Croatia, they're playing next Wednesday, 7 p.m. kickoff against Maddington White City at Maida Vale Reserve. So that'll be an interesting clash as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, who would have dreamt? North Geelong taking on St Albans Dynamo. The 2 sister clubs, they'll be playing. Well, at the moment, it's meant to be a North Geelong Warriors home game, being a midweek game. Will it stay there? Will it be moved to Churchill Reserve, or will it be moved elsewhere? I don't know. But at the moment, North Geelong Warriors have been drawn as the home team in that particular game. So, yeah, a big game awaits. That will be a really, really good game. Looking forward to that. At least we know...
It's exciting when you've got a Croatian derby like we had last year with Sydney United versus Herstal Zagreb up here. And, people get behind it, midweek football. There is something special about midweek football.
There is.
And, it's knockout football, right?
Someone knockout football.
Someone won't. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, last night, obviously, we walked away very happy. And you were talking about before about the way the opposition play with Chisholm being 5 divisions below North Geelong. But even, with Sydney United, I mean, it was really park the bus and try and get through the bus against Northern Tigers, who were 9th in the second division, a division below Sydney United. So
now,
yeah,
an interesting thing.
always interesting.
Now, an interesting thing about Chisholm United, they are actually Oakley Cannons, like an affiliate club, a sister club, if you like, and they were actually formed to play in the lower divisions, basically because the Oakley Cannons players, once they got to kind of under 21s and then senior level, they weren't good enough to make it, or they were just dropping off, and there's that funnel being created. That they then formed this offshoot. So they still play there. They're a Greek club. They play Jack Edwards Reserve where Oakley Cannons do, but they're basically an affiliate club. And what's happened is they've worked their way up from State 5 to State 4, and now they're playing in State 3. I tell you now, all the Croatian clubs should have something like that. I think North Geelong should have a club like that. St Albans Dinamo, they've got Gorspic Bears, St Albans Vukovar that operate out of there. Dandenong City most definitely should have an affiliate club, if you like, on the eastern suburbs. We've got Strathmore Split, which is kind of a bit of an affiliate club to Dinamo in a sense that they're in State 1 at the moment. So players that don't make the grade at Dinamo could probably work their way into a State 1 kind of a phase and then maybe come back. I'd love to see all the Croatian clubs have fully functioning collaborative sister clubs or affiliate clubs, if you like, because the Greeks can do it and the Italians can do it. Why can't we do it? Macedonians do it as well.
And it's very rare that we transfer between each other. So, for instance, we had the goalkeeper move from Sydney United over to Melbourne Knights a couple of years back, and but that's rare, that actually happens as well. And, we've got a big pool of talent, and why not work together to get it on? Thank you to all the comments, John Bilosh and Josip Zilic and Karl Zivkovic. Dobro večer. Thank you for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, no. The other little bit of a tidbit of information about St Albans and North Geelong. The youngster, 16-year-old Marko Juric, he's from his mother's side, the Movriches. They're very, very well embedded at St Albans Dinamo. So loyalties will be torn come, I think the finals are, I'm not too sure. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it could be either next week or the week after. So it could be very interesting. There we go. Tommy Govran, who knows a little bit about this. Many of Strathmore's players have come from the Knights under 21s, and Tommy would know, having been a previous coach of the Melbourne Knights. Yeah, well done. Thanks for that. Progress score from the nation's capital out at Deakin Stadium, 55 minutes gone. And it's Canberra, Croatia 1, Gungahlin United still 2 goals. So come on, Canberra, Croatia.
Get that equaliser. Exactly.
Yeah.
They scored in the first minute. Hopefully they can score, late.
Yeah. Now, earlier today, we found out about some very interesting information from Football Australia with regards to the National Second Division. That's going to be the focus of our discussion after this short break. Don't go away, folks. It is the Crow Soccer Show. And with our next segment, we would really love an interactive element. So put your thoughts, put your opinions in the chat section, and we'd love to hear from you. We'll read out the best ones. But don't go away, folks. It is the Crow Soccer Show. When we return, a discussion about the National Second Division, which is proposed to kick off next year.
Welcome to Slovicek Studio Architecture. Our approach combines modern design with harmonious solutions tailored to your unique needs. We listen closely to your vision and turn it into a functional, beautiful living environment that truly feels like home. Our designs cater to your needs and evolve with you over time, encouraging deeper connections with family and friends. Specializing in custom residential homes and boutique apartments, we balance luxury and comfort to create a welcoming atmosphere for everyone to enjoy. Discover a world of inviting and captivating design at www.slovicekstudio.com.au. Contact us for a journey from idea to reality. Slovicek Studio Architecture, turning your dreams into reality.
Welcome back to the Crow Soccer Show, and let's gaze into the crystal ball of what things may look like in 12 months' time with the National Second Division.
Let's do that. Yes. So actually on this day, Tonci, back in 1987, we had the round 7 of the National Soccer League.
Take a trip down
There
memory
you
lane.
The trip down
Before we go forward,
memory
we'll go
lane.
back.
Let's go back. So this could be we'll see what happens. Obviously, the bottom game could happen potentially with Melbourne, Croatia beating Marconi. And as you could see, we had 2,584 at Bosley Park. And I'm sure some Sydney Croatia fans used to come out and support Melbourne, Croatia back in those days as well. And star-studded team once again for Melbourne, Croatia. And I think Lewis scored on that particular occasion. And Paul Lewis was actually the top goal scorer for Melbourne, Croatia in 1987. But Melbourne, Croatia did not make the top 5 in that particular season. Look at the Marconi lineup. You've got Bobby Catlin, you've got Tony Henderson, Jerry Gomez, all those, Frank Farina, Zlatko Nastevski, a real quality lineup there. And Sydney Croatia actually ended up winning the NSL Cup, funnily enough, which was known as the Beach Fashions Cup, over a 2-legged affair against South Melbourne back in 1987 as well. So just before we start talking about what could happen with the B-League, all of these clubs are there. And, of course, we had the 0-0 draw at Schindler Reserve, and we saw at the top with Sydney Croatia against the old team, Footscray JUST, with the star-studded Sydney Croatia lineup there.
Have a look at that team, hey. Have a look at that team. Tony Franken, Jennings, Vlietstra, Rožić, Clinch, Slater, Shavor, Graham Arnold, Jones, Ante Rumora, Manus Lamond, Željko Jurin, and coached obviously by Rožić. But 1987, correct me if I'm wrong, Ante, was this the first year that it was the unified division where it wasn't the Northern Conference and Southern Conference, or was that the following year?
No, I believe that 84 and 85 were the 2 Northern and Southern, and then 86 started. Yeah. But 86. So this was the second year. That's from memory though. So, but I will check that later on. But yes, they were fantastic times in Australian football back then. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the future, because today Football Australia released a press release, if you like, where it talked about the National Second Division, and it's got to the stage where 26 clubs have now advanced to the next phase of the NST selection process, and now they're in the phase where it's called the RFP request for proposal stage. Now, out of these clubs. If we put the list up of all the clubs there, 4 Croatian clubs. Canberra, Croatia, who are involved tonight with their direct competitor from the ACT for a spot in the eventual competition, Gungahlin United. Canberra, Croatia going for it. From New South Wales, we've got 8 clubs there, aren't there? And we'll go through this. We'll just dissect this. We'll break this down. We'll have a look at who we think are serious and who we think are not serious. But Sydney United, Sydney Croatia, are the representatives from New South Wales as far as Croatian clubs are concerned. We've got the Gold Coast Knights from Queensland, and there are 6 Queensland clubs, which is quite a large number, including an interesting one, which is a mishmash hybrid, whatever you want to call it, a joint bid, Brisbane United. Then we've got the Melbourneites, of course, from Victoria. 7 clubs from there, and it's interesting. They go from the top division to the second division as well. What's your take on all of this, Ante, first of all?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, it's interesting which teams have already been omitted. I'm quite stunned that Blacktown City have put in an initial request and they've been omitted. Of course, they are quite strong in their region, and they've got the area to themselves. They've always done well in the New South Wales Premier League, and as well, they used to be an NSL team. So it really surprises me that we've got teams from MPL2 like Fraser Park, who are big Portuguese background club, who are still in the running there. So I don't know whether Blacktown have pulled out or what case there is. But yeah, it's quite interesting that they are no longer in the running. But yeah,
Well, down south, I was going to say down south in Victoria, the same situation. Brunswick Juventus, yes, they were a big club and once upon a time part of the NSL setup. But at the moment, they're in NPL 2 and struggling. Like they're in relegation mode there. There is a Croatian connection there. Former St. Albans Dinamo coach Kruni Rajov is now the coach at Brunswick Juventus, but he's got his hands full at the moment. Yeah, he's come in the last month and a half or whatever it was, and they are really struggling. But are there any other clubs that are glaringly have been omitted? Those
I'm really
the six that are.
There's no Bentley Greens. Bentley Greens have pulled out, or either they haven't qualified, and they are obviously quite famous, particularly in the Australia Cup realm.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're no longer there in the running. The other interesting one is there's no WA. There was only one WA application, which was a combination between Spearwood, Dalmatinas, and Cockburn City. But it looks like it's going to be an Eastern Seaboard competition based on these particular teams and, of course, South Australia. That was quite interesting as well.
I think it might be a cost factor, to be honest. And look, there's no guarantee that, we may have a single tier division. It may well up being something like it's been mooted, possibly like a Champions League format. And I'll read it was the NST is anticipated to begin in March 2024 and will involve between 10 and 16 teams with a home and away league structure and finals featuring 24 to 36 games. However, the possibility remains for Football Australia to institute a phased group-based model that will utilise the National Premier Leagues to decide the makeup of this format of competition, i.e. the Champions League model. Now, look, we've got a couple of comments. Tony Chubbard, we've got to put his comment up as well. Should be a 24 teams comp split into North and South and top two in comp to playoff to decide the winner. That's an interesting thing. If clubs are accepted into the national second division, do they lose their spot in their local NPL competition, or do they get to field a senior side, maybe under 23s like the A-League sides? That's an interesting question. First of all, I think in response to Tommy Gavran's question, I know we had Pave Yusuf on here saying that they actually won't. So they will give up their spot in the NPL. And I know Pave was saying that that's actually what they want, because they want, the team to be playing at the elite level and all the focus to be on that elite level, which is interesting because in Croatia, Hajduk, Dinamo, Rijeka, they've done away with their second teams, their reserve teams or their youth teams playing in the lower divisions for the very reason of it was just costing too much. And they wanted to obviously either loan out players, send them out to affiliate clubs. There's that word again, affiliate clubs. But yeah, I think it probably would be a better solution not to have these second teams in the NPL competitions, simply because of the cost factor. Because let's face it, initially the cost factor will be quite significant, don't you think?
Oh, it's going to be massive. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember the NSL days where, you had to pay for the players to transportation, you had to pay for their meals, you had to pay for accommodation in certain circumstances. At the moment, they're talking about a winter league. So I could imagine, this is going to be happening predominantly on a Friday, Saturday, or a Sunday. So Friday, we still don't know if the players are going to be professional or not. So how they're going to manage their work, plus the extra training, plus the travel, etc. I know they did it in the NSL days. Are the clubs financially able to look after it and make it competitive? And obviously, there's no guarantee of promotion either. I mean, where's the carrot? Where's the carrot for promotion? That's not happening for another couple of years.
Yeah.
If you win the league, are you getting money? Is it going to be televised? Is it going to be on Paramount? Is it going to be on 10 Bold? Where is it going to be televised? I mean, none of this information's come through so far. Yep. And yet we've got all of these clubs wanting to be a part of it, which I understand. They want to be a part of it. And, we've got 4 Croatian clubs here. which if it's going to be a 12-team competition, I don't know if they're going to make a decision to have 4 Croatian clubs in a 12-team.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because if we go back to that list with the names, you'd have to really sort of Gold Coast Knights. All right, they backed by they've got the Magic Group up there. Adrian Pulic is their chairman, hardworking. He's got a lot of contacts in the business world. Canberra, Croatia, the same sort of thing. So they've got a lot of reasonable amount of money compared to, I'd say, a lot of other bids, but not being as big and, shall I say, significant in the national scheme of things, because Sydney United is in Sydney, Melbourne Knights is in Melbourne. You'd have to think Canberra, Croatia, and Gold Coast Knights would really be faced with an uphill battle. Unfortunately, that's just my view, and that's I would love to see 4 Croatian clubs in a league of 16 teams, for example. But realistically, would that happen? I don't know. And you look at Queensland, for example, Ante. You've got some pretty strong bids on paper. So how many would you expect to come from Queensland? And that probably depends on the next question. How many would you expect to come from Sydney, and how many would you expect to come from Melbourne? Because I think you'd expect probably 80, maybe 85% of the teams would actually come from Sydney and Melbourne. Whether we like it or not, they're the biggest clubs, the biggest population centres, and the biggest budgets.
We haven't heard if there's going to be anything relating to geography. So it's all about application at the moment. So, I'd love to see the team from Tassie come through. I think it'd be fantastic for the sport down there. But whether, they are strong enough, whether their bid is good enough, or will they be favoured because they're the only bid, we don't know. We probably won't ever know. But, it's interesting to see, we've got Football South Australia putting a bid in. We've got the combined Sutherland Sharks and Cronulla Rugby League team putting a bid in. So, there's a lot of potential big players here that currently don't have a team even, bidding against us traditional teams.
Yeah. Hold that thought. We've got a progress score from Canberra, and geez, it is all happening. Thanks, you to Andrea, keeping us up to date with what is going on. Canberra, Croatia, drawing 3-3 with Gungahlin after 68th minute. 68th minute. So it's 2-2 in the 62nd minute. Gungahlin took the lead, and then 5 minutes later, in the 67th minute, Canberra, Croatia has drawn level. I reckon that game may well be headed into extra time. It's 70 minutes gone there in the nation's capital. But getting back to that there's a few of those consortiums, if you like, talking about that. Yeah, a couple of them have gone in. Brisbane. Okay, Brisbane United, Wynnum Wolves, Brisbane Strikers FC, and Virginia United. You'd have to think that they would stand a pretty good chance, obviously being Brisbane Strikers in that group as well. I don't know. Are they backed by the federation up there? I'm not too sure. There is one that's in South Australia. That one's backed by the Football South Australia Federation. So you'd think that might hold a bit of weight there. Although Adelaide City, they've got great facilities. Let's not look at tradition. Let's look at finances. Let's look at resources and all that kind of stuff. If anyone is from Adelaide, is Adelaide City still a powerhouse that they once upon a time used to be? I don't know. It'd be really interesting. But tell us more about the Sydney bids, Ante. Go through one by one, starting with Apia Leichhardt.
Yeah, well, Apia doing very well this year in the NPL, and they don't get many crowds. I don't know how they're going to do with the crowds, but hopefully they'll be able to improve. And from the looks of things, they're funded quite well, so you'd think that their application would be a strong application for entry. Fraser Park, as I mentioned them before, they're Portuguese backed. They've got great facilities, sort of in the Marrickville, Sydenham area. They've got a club basically adjacent to the ground. It's interesting because they were actually trying to get promoted into NPL1 a couple of years ago. They had a big backing, and they were actually coached at that time by Jason Chelina, Dean Chelina. I think Branko also had a hand there as well in that particular season. And they finished equal on club championship points. And unfortunately, due to technicality, whatever, they didn't, get actually promoted. So it sounds like they've got backing again. And then because when they didn't get promoted, they lost a lot of money. They were in the newspapers, etc. There were all sorts of things that were going on there. And then, it sounds like they've got money again. Marconi, of course, traditional. They call them the Palace. They still call it the Palace. So they'll put in a strong bid. Rockdale, they are an interesting bid. Obviously, they never played in the NSL, but they've always been strong in the New South Wales NPL. They do have a decent following amongst the Macedonian community. And so, I could say that, they'll probably put in a strong bid. Sydney Olympic, I mean, there were photos going around social media just the other day about the lack of crowds and things like that at Sydney Olympic. Are they as strong as they were? They've got Laurie McKenna there pushing their bid. So he's over there now. Obviously, he's got a lot of pull, having been at Newcastle, having been at Central Coast, etc. He knows the administrative side of football. So that could be a leg up for Sydney Olympic. But whether they are what they were before, I don't think so. Sydney United, obviously we'll put in a strong bid. We still generate the biggest crowds at the NPL level. We saw what could happen with the Australia Cup, and I'm sure that interest would lift further and further if we were to make it into the B League and play against the other team and play at a higher level as well. So, that'll be fantastic. We've just got to put in a strong bid. Sutherland and Cronulla, they are interesting because,
I'm really intrigued by this.
Huge junior nursery, and Cronulla Sharks are just redeveloping. They've got a lot of money with the rugby league club and their social club there. So, I would say that they're going to put in a very strong foot forward for this particular position in the B League. And Wollongong have always, Wollongong should be in the A League. They shouldn't be in the B League. They were strong in the NSL. I mean, I remember you and I, Tonci, going together to watch the Melbourne Knights, and they had 7,000-8,000 people back then, and at Brandon Park. Brandon Park no longer. They've got a great facility down there in Wynn Stadium. They should be, there, but whether financially they've got the backing, with a fraternity club and other backers, I think that they will put in a very strong bid. So, again, who do you knock out? I mean, it's so hard to find someone to knock out, particularly out of Apia, Marconi, Olympic United, and Sutherland, Cronulla, and Wollongong. I mean, there's 5 there that'll be really hard to knock out just based on history.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a look at the Victorian one, and I'm going to go start from Avondale. I think Avondale have got lots of money. They've got no fans. Their infrastructure is not the best, but that doesn't matter, because if they've got the money, they can do something there, and they can always move their ground somewhere to a facility that's a lot more conducive to playing national second division football. But they do have money, and that's about the only thing going for them. And on the field, they've got a very good side. They're currently joint top of the NPL Victoria competition. So there's that element. Brunswick Juventus, they changed their name back to Brunswick Juventus last year. They haven't as yet rediscovered their glorious past. Their supporters, I don't know. The finances, I don't know. And definitely at the moment, playing resources are not very significant. Green Gully, the Maltese club, they've got a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. They had a club that had pokies and what you're not. So they've got a lot of backing their money there. Not much supporters. They're not the Maltese club with a lot of supporters. George Cross are. And George Cross decided that they didn't want a part of this just yet. Mark Sultana, their president, was on one of our sister podcast shows, the Football Out West, earlier this year, and saying, look, we still support it. We still support the concept, but we're just a little bit cautious at the moment because of the cost factor. But George Cross have potentially got 3,000 to 4,000 spectators each week. Now, Heidelberg United, they're a giant. They don't have the supporters at the moment that they used to, but then a lot of the clubs at the moment at NPL level don't. And they're holding back. We talked about Sydney United with that one-off at the Australia Cup. Was it a one-off? Was it a flash in the pan? Or would they consistently get good crowds? Look, personally, I don't think any of those clubs would get crowds of, the NSL era, the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 regular. I think they'd struggle. Most of those clubs would struggle to get 1,000 regular crowd. I might be wrong. But it will all come back down to finances. Heidelberg and South Melbourne, they've got lots and lots of backing, lots and lots of money. Facilities, both South Melbourne, both Heidelberg have got pretty good facilities. Obviously, South Melbourne got, one of the best facilities at that level in the country. Heidelberg, they've just ploughed a lot of X amount of millions of dollars into their facility, and it's still being upgraded. There's a master plan there as well. So you'd have to certainly think those two would definitely be. Preston Lions, they're a big club. They are the best supported club in Victoria at the moment. They regularly get crowds of 3,000 or plus, and they're in NPL 2 at the moment. They've got a committee that has just galvanised the entire community, not just the Macedonians in the northern suburbs, but that entire football community. And it's a well-run club. They've got I think they've got sponsors that are on the waiting list. They've got local council, local tiers of government ploughing a fair bit of money into it. They've just had, I think it was last week, they released plans for a new grandstand on the outer side of the BT Connor Reserve. They are a big club. And I would not be surprised if they are, probably, I won't say head and shoulders, but if they're one of the big ones. Now, our club, the Melbourne Knights, we've got the potential, but the big factor there is, will the St. Albans Dynamo fans, will the North Geelong fans, will the Strathmore fans, will the Dandenong City fans, will they come back en masse and support the Knights? And, like once upon a time, Melbourne, Croatia was the focal point of the Victorian Croatian community in the same way that Sydney and Croatia was for the New South Wales /ACT League. Will they come back en masse? I don't know. I have my reservations about that. So it won't come back down to crowd support. For those big games, yeah, they'll have big crowds. For the South Melbournes and the games against Preston and Heidelberg, yeah, for sure. We'll get the big crowds. But on a regular basis, if they're playing Adelaide City or Marconi or Apia or Sunshine Coast or Gungahlin United, I don't know. I can't see big crowds happening there. So then it comes back down to the finances. We don't have the industry. We don't have the support from various tiers of government that some of the other clubs do. And our corporate support isn't as big as maybe what the Hellas's and the Heidelbergs and the Club Marconis have. So I do have my reservations about that. But it'll all come back down to, Ante, I think the big thing is in what you said, TV rights. Will there be money from TV rights? Because back in the NSL days, we didn't have that. And the clubs had to rely on Chevape and meat raffles and, bottle of scotch for a raffle and that kind of stuff. generating gate sales and things like that. You can't live off that in this day and age. The costs are just too exorbitant. But so folks, what do you think? What do you think out there? I'd love to hear and think what you people think.
John Billosh put in a good question. How much coin do you need in the bank to be included? Heard 250,000, 1 million, and or 2 million. I'm not exactly sure of specifics, but they did an actual study on the operating costs and how it financially could be structured. And I think it was around that $1.5 million sort of budget type of range. So I think we'll just have to wait and see, because it depends. Like if some of these clubs get admitted, and obviously they start splurging because they want to do well in this league, or are they just going to, rely on the juniors and use the existing players? That's the other question. I mean, we've got A-League clubs that are struggling like Western United. Are we going to have as you mentioned before, a Preston Lions if they do make it, or a Melbourne Knights if we get a marquee player, etc. Getting bigger crowds in the A-League as well, which of course happened back in the 80s, which is why Melbourne Croatia and Sydney Croatia got admitted into the NSL, because they couldn't stop that particular force of the crowds that were attending at that particular time.
Look, the one thing is about a lot of the Croatian clubs, and Grgic, who hails from Victoria and goes to a lot of these games. I'm pretty sure most fans will come back if we get into second division competition. If you go to a lot of our Croatian-backed clubs' games, it's the members of the second, members of the third generation. And unfortunately, sadly, a lot of the first generation Croatian Australians have passed on, or they're just too frail and too old. And it is good to see that the second and the third generation are coming, are coming to games, and you do. It's I know down at North Geelong, I know at St Albans Dynamo, at Dandenong City, even Melbourne Knights. Sometimes that I've gone to these games, you see a lot of these younger people coming back to games. But is it enough? That's the thing. Is it enough? I'd love to think it is. And you know what, Ante? At the end of the day, let's try. If nothing else, we'll die knowing that we've tried. If nothing else, but it would be such a shame if we didn't try. And you talk to Pavel Yusuf, Melbourne Knights president. He's adamant. He's resolute that this will, the Melbourne Knights being involved in this competition, it will survive. It will succeed. It will prosper. And that's what I would love to think. And look, at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I think the old days when we used to have these pathways. I'll use North Geelong, for example. North Geelong, you then move on to St Albans Dynamo, who was in the State League, and then you move on to Melbourne Knights, who are in the NSL. You had this kind of a pathway. So if a player's good enough at, say, 15, 16 level, they move on to the next one. They spend a year or two there, then they move on to the next one, etc. And by the time they get to the top, which is the Melbourne Knights or Sydney United or Gold Coast Knights or Canberra, Croatia, they're all ready to spend a year or 2 years at the absolute top level. And guess what? Then go to overseas, to Europe. And we talked about it with Josip Šimunić last week, that link between Croatia and the diaspora is starting to get that little bit smaller as far as the football is concerned, as far as soccer is concerned. There are opportunities galore that are being created. So let's now utilise those channels. It's exciting, but that's my thoughts, Ante. Wrap up what you think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited. Look, I'd love for Sydney Croatia, Melbourne Croatia, and all the Croatians, Gold Coast, Canberra, to be part of it and be admitted. And obviously, the one concern I have is currently there are local derbies and the crowds aren't there. But what's going to happen when you've got Sydney Croatia against Brunswick Juventus, when you're not going to get an away crowd as well. So, we have to rely on that home crowd. And it's all about discretionary time as well. I mean, geez, sometimes, on a weekend, I'm spending, watching 3-4 full games of football, which is a lot of time, and that's just watching, my kids play and things like that. So can people afford the time, these days? Is it like the 80s where you'd go to church on a Sunday afternoon, then go to lunch, and then you'd go straight to the game? And what is the perfect time? For us, definitely, I prefer 3 o'clock on a Sunday. That's where I enjoy. That's my Sydney United time. Will that be and resonate around the nation? And, will it be on TV like we mentioned before? I mean, there's good questions coming through about what would be the pass mark for average crowds, 3,000 by Petar Finka. We don't know. I mean, I would say, like, even, for some A-League clubs and even for some NSL clubs back in the day, a pass mark was 3,000. It's all about whether it's financial, whether it's profitable, and not only for this season, but in future seasons before, the promotion happens. Because I'm sure once promotion happens, then, there will be a little bit more of a carrot. But then you've need bigger budgets. So even if we are in the B League, if we get promoted to the A-League, how feasible is it going to be? And do we have to knock it back, or can we get admitted? Is there enough funding there? All of these things. As long as we've got good people behind it, the good thing is we need good people with good business connections and, willing to obviously make it work. And, that's all it will take. And I'm sure, like we always do, the Croatian community, if something big happens, then we all bandy together and get behind it. And that's what's going to happen here as well.
Yeah. Anyway, look, we talk about the opportunities that are available for young footballers here in this country, and utilising the various pathways, and we talk about that bridge to Croatian football. One young player from Australia who's explored that and is currently playing in Croatia. He's going to be our mate, a very special guest on next week's show. He's playing in the Croatian third tier competition, the Croatian third division. And his name's Jacob Tarasenko. He's half Croatian from his mum's side, and he's half, this is an interesting one. I'm not too sure if it's like half Indian and half Irish or something like that, or Italian or something. It's an interesting it's an interesting mix, but from his mum's side, he's Croatian. And at the moment, he's playing for HNK Segesta in Sisak. He's played, look at that. These are his season stats for this year, 2022-23. He's played 17 games, started in all of those games, and he's scored 19 goals and 5 assists. So he's really, really tearing up the fields in the third division. Unlikely that Segesta Sisak will get promoted to the second division next year. A team from Zagreb is looking very, very good, Sesvete. And there's another team as well, Zrinjevac, I think it's called. They are the second placed, or currently first. So my point is, it's going to be an interesting way to talk, interesting to find out from this fella, young Jacob. How did he go about it? How did he he has played in Sweden and Denmark and whatnot, but he's ended up in Croatia, and supposedly he's really, really enjoying it. So we'll find out all there is to find out about young Jacob Tarasenko. He'll be joining us all the way from Croatia on next week's show. But, mate, we might wrap it up there. Thank you to everyone that has been involved for in tonight's discussion. And we really, really appreciate that. A lot of people on the chats, but also obviously a lot of people that aren't involved in the chats. They just prefer to sit back and listen and watch. And thank you to every one of you for being involved in that regard. Next week promises to be a great show. Hopefully, we'll also be able to get someone on from the Croatian Soccer Tournament Organising Committee in Adelaide, because the registrations have just opened up this last week or so. So we'll find out what is all the latest as far as the Croatian Soccer Tournament in Adelaide, Ante.
It's still 3-3 over in Canberra, so you might want to tune in if you do have the Canberra TV to tune into extra time and penalties, or follow it on your app, whichever
go over. Yeah, we're going to wind it up. We're going to wind it up, guys, and we're going to invite you to go to the Bar TV Sports website, and I think they've got this live stream happening there. Good night from myself, and good night from Ante. Good night, folks. Thank you for being a part of the Oz Crow Soccer Show. Laku noć.
Thank you, everyone.